Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. Thank you guys for connecting with us. Please do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get new videos as we upload new content. In this video, man, we're going to be dealing with Odell Beckham, Lamar Jackson, and the Baltimore Ravens 2023 draft. Okay. And so first up, Odell Beckham, we know that we saw his press conference yesterday. I'm sure you guys have heard all kind of takes, all kind of assessments, and I'm not really going to give a take on assessment. I kind of did that before the press conference and basically assessed what I needed to hear from Odell to um, let me know where he was as he entered the 2023 season. And so a lot of those questions that I posed in that video, he hit on. I wanted to know, was he mentally, emotionally, physically well? And he did answer that. He did speak about um, kind of what it took to get back on the field or to get ready to get back on the field. He talked about what it was like to be away from ball for over a year. He talked about the grind, and these are my paraphrases, of course. He talked about the grind mentally, emotionally, and physically of what it took to rehab. He talked about this being his second injury as it pertains to the knee and what it took to get back both times. And so what I hear him say is that um, he's done everything he needed to do as far as his mental, emotional, physical wellness to be ready to go for the 2023 season. And that gives me a little more confidence about what he can bring to the table. Another thing that I posed that I needed to hear from Odell was, would he be a leader or a mentor to the younger players? And his leadership is certainly something he spoke about um, as it pertains to, being a leader of this wide receiver squad or even a leader for the offense. And so that's something that he spoke about. I was well pleased to hear. Um, there was a couple different questions about his personality or having a big personality. And one thing that I took from Odell, this is not a take, this is just what I hear and see from him, is that he is more mature as a man, as a father, than I've ever seen him speak about in his time in the NFL. Um, I was very impressed with how well he spoke. There was no hesitation or resistance to answer particular questions. And so I was well pleased with everything that I heard and saw from Odell Beckham Jr. Seems like a real proud father, which is really cool to see, being a father myself. And so I think that as long as everything goes well in training camp, preseason workouts, off field workouts, like when QBs and wide receivers get together somewhere, Miami or LA or whatever, they working out. As long as everything goes well, it sounds like Odell will be ready to go for the 2023 season. He didn't seem to lean in a direction of not being ready in 4 months for the season. Um, so sounds like he's ready to go mentally, emotionally, and physically. Another thing that I heard from him was that he's motivated, right? Not really motivated to prove people wrong, but just motivated to prove himself right. Yeah, that that it's cool to kind of bet on yourself and be self-motivated. So I definitely saw him speak about, although he may not have used the word motivation, I definitely heard him speak about some motivating factors. And those motivating factors were self-motivation, not really anything external to him. Um, as it pertains to Lamar Jackson, it sounded like EDC and John Harbaugh both still have love for Lamar. It sounds like they still want Lamar to be the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. It doesn't seem like that page has turned yet. Now we know that they certainly would not get on camera and say, "Nah, we moved on from Lamar," or "Nah, we really ain't looking for Lamar to be a part of the Ravens." And so that certainly makes sense for them to get on there and say what they said. But I certainly thought that yesterday there was a level of genuineness from all parties involved, both EDC and also John Harbaugh. And then when Odell spoke about Lamar Jackson questions, which you guys know, we said that I thought it would be three at a minimum, up to 5 or 6. I think we got 5 or 6, if not more, Lamar Jackson questions, and I really I really appreciate that nobody avoided those questions. I appreciate that EDC answered the questions. I appreciate that John Harbaugh answered the questions. And I appreciate that Odell Beckham answered the questions. And I appreciate him not taking any type of ownership of recruiting Lamar back to Baltimore, or he didn't make any assurances or any guarantees that because he's there, Lamar is definitely coming back. And, my assessment a couple of days ago was that, I was certainly, and I still am certainly thinking that it is highly likely that Lamar Jackson could play for another team. Uh, but I think it's about 60% at this point that it's in favor that he could return. Okay. And I stand on that. So it's like a 60% he could return, 40% he still could leave. And at one point I was probably 70-30. 70 he was gone, 30% he would come back. So it's definitely shifted. And I gave you guys some signals for that. But back to Lamar and this press conference, I appreciate that everybody seemingly was candid about their thoughts and feelings about Lamar. I appreciate the fact that Odell Beckham said, yeah, it is his thinking, or was his thinking, that he would come and play with Lamar. Not that Lamar was coming back, but that would be something he would like to do. And so I appreciate that honesty as well. Um, Nobody deflected. Well, uh, we just have to see, or we just have to wait on Lamar. No, people answer the question for themselves. Nobody um, deflected the Lamar Jackson questions, and I really appreciate that. Um, and so, as it pertains to Lamar specifically, I think that we won't know much until draft night. I think that draft night or the Monday after the draft is when we could get some real Lamar Jackson movement or real Lamar Jackson buzz. Would I like to see Lamar sign a deal and stay in Baltimore? Yes, I would. Do I think that happens before the draft? No, I do not think it happens before the draft. And it may not even happen shortly after the draft. When I say it may be some more Lamar Jackson buzz, some real legitimate buzz after the draft, is because most of a team's roster is set, right? Quarterbacks are mostly in position at that point. Wide receivers, defensive line, defensive backs, offensive line, people have filled the holes through the draft. And so I think that it'll be more clear, uh, kind of a Lamar Jackson standing with the Baltimore Ravens, or if there is an increased potential for him to land with another team. So I guess no news is good news at this point. So let me be clear. Do I want Lamar Jackson to stay a Raven? Yes. Um, do I think he could still leave? Yes. Um, but we just have to wait and see. Now for the Baltimore Ravens, I think that as we approach the draft, we're certainly 14-ish days out, depending on how you count days. We're about 14 days out, and EDC and John Harbaugh spoke very clear and very certain that the draft board would be set by the end of this week. And so that's what they said on last week. So that means as we get into today, at the close of business today, the Baltimore Ravens draft board should be set. Um, I'm not sure at this point what I think they should do in the first round. Um, I do have some scenarios that I'm going to pitch to you guys. I want to hear back from you guys in another video. But at this point, I think both wide receiver and cornerback could certainly be still on the table. I don't think edge rusher, I don't think defensive line, I don't think offensive line um, are options. I think it's only one of those two positions that is on the table in the first round. I think it's either going to be a wide receiver or it's either going to be a cornerback. I think that's where we are. And that means so in best player scenarios, when the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock, a wide receiver may not be the best player available. A cornerback may not be a best player available, but I don't think the Baltimore Ravens can afford a best player available route, simply because I think they still have a big hole at wide receiver. I'll explain that when I give my take on what they should do in the draft at a later date. And I think they have a big hole at cornerback. Now they certainly could make some moves up 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 until the draft that would fill one of those holes or at least create some depth at one of those positions, cornerback or wide receiver. But at this point in time, I think they both should still be on the table. And, so just in case you're wondering why wide receiver should still be on the table in the first round, is simply this. We have Odell Beckham now in-house, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, Devin Duvernay, and I'm just going to stick with those four. I know that Tylan Wallace and Prochet was mentioned in the press conference yesterday, but I'm just going to go with those four. Odell, Rashad, Devin, and Nelson. I'm just going to go with those four guys as certainties to be on the roster. Now, I got something to say about Devin a little later in another video about draft night. But as of right now, I think those are, I guess you would call them roster locks. And so, but the one thing that three of the four of those guys have in common is they do have an injury history. We understand Odell's injury history, just now returning to the field after a more than a year layoff. We know Rashad Bateman has been hurt both year one, year two. Devin Duvernay was hurt last year and missed a good portion of the season. And I don't really know Nelson Aguilar's injury history. I'm not sure if he has an extensive one or not. I haven't checked into that. And so I think because those things are true, that wide receiver certainly should still be on the table going into the first round of the draft, only because a first round wide receiver would create some more depth. And another reason why wide receiver should be on the table is more futuristic. When you look at the four receivers I just named, and actually if you look at all six receivers, Beckham, Aguilar, Bateman, Prochet, Wallace, and Duvernay, most of those guys will be free agents in the 2024 offseason. So getting a guy in this year's draft who you kind of lock up for a minimum 4 years at a value price, I think maybe smart as well, so that we're not back in, kind of a similar situation next year. Okay. Um, and so that's why I think wide receivers should certainly be on the table um, in the 2020 in the 2023 draft, but at the 22nd spot. So cornerback, I think that it certainly is on the table. But I think that if we're not in position to get one of those top four, and I'll talk about those top four more specifically a little later. If we're not in position to get one of those top four, I think that we should maybe wait and do something in free agency and get some depth pieces maybe in the third round, because those top four are locks. Now, this is a deep cornerback class, a lot of size, a lot of length a lot of speed. So I think that we could certainly mix and match free agent pickups and the draft and create a nice cornerback room for sure. So anyway, I think both positions are on the table, cornerback and wide receiver, and those reasons are why. So let me know what you guys want me to know. What do you guys think about the Odell Beckham press conference? Do you think he's ready to go? I think he is, and I think he certainly will be even more ready um, by the start of the season. Do you think Odell is going to bring a lot to the table, or do you have moderate expectations? I still have moderate expectations. Could he go for 1,000 yards? Yes. Will he? I don't know. I don't know because I think health is certainly a huge issue. Um, and so we won't know that until he gets on the field and we see him come out of each game with a clean bill of health. Potential, yes. Potential to be 1,000 yard receiver, yes. Potential to make big plays, yes. But will that actually happen? I don't know. And that's not me doubting him. That's just me basing my assumption on what we've seen historically from a health perspective. Okay, Lamar Jackson, is he coming back to Baltimore? I don't know. Do I want him to? Yes. Is it likely that he could still leave? There is a likelihood that he could still go somewhere else. We just won't know. I think again, draft night will tell us a whole lot. I think if he's still a part of the Baltimore Ravens after the first round, it kind of maybe inches up a little more that he may return. But we just don't know. I can tell you what I want to happen, but I can't tell you what will happen for sure. And then as far as the draft, I think wide receiver and cornerback, and I'm saying only wide receiver and cornerback um, should be on the table. Okay. Let me give you a few updates before I close out. So I got two really big projects I'm gonna release. I call them projects, man, because it took a lot of work to do them. One is on Lamar Jackson specifically. We answer a huge question that nobody else has really answered. We've heard a lot of people talk about it, but nobody has really answered. And I think it'll really, uh, you know, I think it'll really put what Lamar Jackson has done in a Ravens uniform and what he still could do in a Ravens uniform in real perspective. So one big project, it'll probably come out Sunday or Monday. So be looking for it. I'll kind of give you a signal that it's coming out. On Saturday, I'll kind of let you know because now I got to do the recording for it. I had to do all the research. I got to do the recording for it, but it's a big project. It's probably the most labor intensive project that I've done as I've been making these videos. So that'll come out really big. It's kind of a must watch. It'll be pretty lengthy. I would say probably 30 plus minutes. I encourage you to watch it in one setting. I encourage you to watch it twice because a lot of information is going to be there. It'll be a lot of explanation. It'll be a lot of detail. But I think those of you who love football, who love analysis, who love the Ravens, and who really ride with Lamar, I think it'll be a video you will appreciate, and it'll add to your barbershop talk for sure. So that's coming up Sunday or Monday. And then I have another big project. It was labor intensive as well. And it's going to be about players who could be traded in this year's first round. Got some big names on the list, some names we're going to be very, very familiar with. There'll be some Ravens on that list. I'll explain why they might be traded. I'll explain fits, all those kind of things. So it'll be an around the league segment because it does involve Ravens players for sure, but it does involve players that have been linked to the Ravens, but it also involves players who just might be traded, some big notable names. So we'll dive into that. That'll probably come up Saturday or Sunday. So everything we're going to do, all both big projects, both labor intensive, they're coming out Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So just stay tuned for that. Listen, I appreciate you guys. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.